I know what she is, Marcus. If you marry that woman tomorrow, you will regret it for the rest of your life. The words hung in the air, a chilling indictment that shattered the space between mother and son. Eleanor Wilson stood before her only child, the worry etched into the lines of her face, her eyes filled with the agony of a terrible discovery. Marcus stared back, his disbelief a fragile shield against the truth. In that moment his world began to fracture, the image of the woman he adored crumbling before him. To understand how they arrived at this devastating precipice, we must travel back 3 weeks. At 35, Marcus Wilson was the embodiment of success. From the fertile ground of his own brilliant mind and a relentless work ethic, he had cultivated Wilson Tech Solutions into a $500 million empire. His innovative security software was revolutionizing the industry, and government contracts were the fruits of his labor. He had everything a man could desire: wealth, respect, power, everything, except someone to share it with. That changed the night Jessica Parker floated into his life. Beautiful, charming, and impossibly sophisticated, the 32-year-old PR executive seemed an answer to a prayer Marcus had long since abandoned. Her porcelain skin, a cascade of blonde hair, and a smile that could disarm nations had captivated him from their first encounter at a charity gala. 8 months later, he stunned everyone by announcing their engagement. No one was more stunned or more concerned than Eleanor Wilson. At 60, the retired detective possessed razor-sharp instincts, honed by decades of navigating the darkest corners of human nature. Since losing her husband 10 years prior, Marcus had become the center of her universe. And something about Jessica Parker set off every alarm bell in her soul. "She's perfect, Mom," Marcus had insisted during one of their weekly Sunday dinners. "You'll see." Eleanor had smiled and nodded, swallowing her reservations. What could she say? That Jessica's dazzling smile never quite reached her eyes? That the stories of her past seemed to shift and reshape with each telling? Or that when Jessica thought no one was watching, her mask of perfection would slip, revealing something cold and calculating beneath? Keith Johnson, Marcus's best friend and COO, harbored the same fears. "Don't you think this is moving a little fast, man?" he ventured during a rare moment alone with Marcus. "I mean, 8 months. When you know, Marcus replied, his confidence a fortress, easily deflecting his friend's concern just as he had his mother's. They didn't see what Eleanor saw. They didn't see Jessica's warmth vanish the moment Marcus left a room, replaced by a look of smug satisfaction. They didn't hear the hushed, urgent phone calls she made when he was working late, or witness the contemptuous sneer she reserved for servers when Marcus was settling the bill. "I need to hire a new maid," Jessica announced over dinner one evening, her tone laced with casual disdain. "My last one was just dreadful, so lazy. Do you know anyone reliable, Eleanor?" Eleanor felt the subtle dig, the condescension veiled as a simple question. "I might," she replied carefully, an idea, dangerous and desperate, beginning to form in the back of her mind. The feeling that something was terribly wrong festered. Little inconsistencies piled up like kindling for a fire. Jessica claimed a childhood in Connecticut, then later mentioned a high school in Pennsylvania. She said her parents died in a car crash, but then offhandedly referenced visiting her mother for Christmas. To anyone else, they were trivial slips. To a former detective, they were red flags in a hurricane. Suspicion turned to certainty one evening when Eleanor stopped by Marcus's house unannounced. Standing in the silent hallway, she overheard Jessica's voice from the next room, low and conspiratorial. "Just be patient," Jessica whispered into her phone. "After the wedding, we'll have everything. His mother's suspicious, but it doesn't matter. He trusts me completely." Eleanor froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. There was only one way to unearth the truth. She had to get closer. She had to see the woman behind the mask. Drawing on her years of investigative experience, Eleanor hatched a plan. She would become the maid Jessica so desperately needed. A visit to the best theatrical makeup artist in the city transformed Eleanor Wilson, a woman of grace and standing, into Maria Santiago, a humble housekeeper. 3 days later, Maria applied for the position at Jessica's luxury penthouse. With streaks of gray in her hair, unassuming glasses, makeup that added a decade to her face, and subtle padding that altered her very silhouette, Eleanor was unrecognizable. She adopted a slight accent and a submissive demeanor, becoming the invisible servant that women like Jessica barely registered as human. "You come highly recommended," Jessica said, her eyes barely grazing the falsified resume. My fiancé is a very important man. I entertain important people. I require absolute discretion and perfection. Do you understand? Yes, Ms. Parker, Eleanor murmured, suppressing the rage that coiled in her gut. I understand. You start tomorrow, 6 a.m. sharp. Behind the closed doors of her penthouse, away from Marcus, Jessica Parker was a different person. What Eleanor witnessed over the next 2 weeks made her blood run cold. Clean the bathroom again, Jessica would snap, her voice dripping with venom. Are all of you people this lazy? No wonder you scrub toilets for a living. The casual racism, the sneering insults, the constant degradation, each was a chisel chipping away at Jessica's pristine facade, revealing the ugliness beneath. I swear, Maria, his mother is so tiresome, Jessica complained one afternoon, thumbing through her phone. Always prying, as if a woman her age has any business questioning me. Once we're married, I'll make sure we only see her on holidays. Eleanor scrubbed the granite countertop harder, choking back the words that burned her throat. The most disturbing discovery, however, came 10 days into her charade. A handsome man in his mid-30s, whom Eleanor would come to know as Alex, arrived at the apartment. Jessica's demeanor transformed instantly. She flew into his arms, their kiss passionate and possessive. "Did anyone see you?" she purred. Pretending to dust in the adjacent room, Eleanor strained to listen. "No one," Alex replied. "How's our favorite CEO?" Jessica let out a cold, sharp laugh. "Clueless. He actually asked if I wanted a prenup. Can you believe it? I gave him the whole heartbroken routine, told him I couldn't bear to think he didn't trust me. He folded instantly." "That's my girl," Alex said, his voice thick with pride. 3 more weeks and we'll own half of Wilson Tech." Eleanor nearly dropped her duster. This wasn't just about Marcus's money. They were after his company, his life's work. The breaking point came one evening as Jessica prepared to host a few friends. She returned from a heated phone call muttering about incompetent fools and poured herself a large glass of red wine. She paced the living room, agitated, the wine sloshing dangerously close to the rim. "Would you like me to take that, Ms. Parker?" Eleanor asked softly, her eyes on the expensive white sofa. "No, I would not like you to take that, Maria," Jessica mocked, crudely imitating Eleanor's accent. "Just do your job." A moment later, Jessica spun around too quickly. Wine splashed across the glass coffee table and onto the pristine white rug. "Look what you made me do!" she shrieked, though Eleanor was feet away. "I'm sorry, Ms. Parker. You distracted me. This rug costs more than you make in a year." Before Eleanor could react, Jessica threw the remaining contents of her glass directly in her face. The red wine stung her eyes and dripped down her chin, staining her uniform. "Maybe that will teach you to pay attention," Jessica snarled. Eleanor stood frozen, the wine a sticky, humiliating mask. In all her years, no one had ever treated her with such utter contempt. Every instinct screamed at her to drop the facade, to unleash the fury of a detective and a mother, but the job wasn't done. Swallowing her pride, she wiped her face and said, "I'll get the stain remover, Ms. Parker." As she washed the wine and tears of rage from her face in the staff bathroom, Eleanor made a vow. Jessica Parker would never marry her son. Not if she had to burn the world down to stop it. Her opportunity arrived on a Thursday afternoon. Jessica, leaving for a hair appointment, casually instructed Maria to organize her home office, a room that had, until now, been strictly off-limits. "Just vacuum and dust the shelves," Jessica had warned. "Don't touch a thing on my desk, I'll know." The warning was a confirmation. As soon as the elevator doors closed, Eleanor began her search. The room was immaculate, but years on the force had taught her that secrets are rarely kept in plain sight. Behind a small painting, she found a wall safe. But the real prize was hidden behind a potted plant on a bookshelf. A concealed compartment containing a slim, silver laptop. Slipping on latex gloves, Eleanor opened it. She had watched Jessica for weeks, noting the patterns she used to unlock her phone. On the 4th try, Alex Y 1990, the screen came to life. What she found made her blood run cold. The laptop contained detailed files on 6 different men, all successful tech entrepreneurs. Each file was a blueprint for ruin, complete with personal details, financial records, and chilling notes on extraction timelines and liquidation strategies. One file documented a founder who had lost his company 3 years prior. The notes were stark. Extraction complete. Assets transferred. 4.2M. Patents sold. 12 malus. Then she found the folder labeled Wilson M. It was all there. Her son's daily routines, a psychological assessment detailing his vulnerabilities, and a chilling subfolder marked contingencies. It outlined strategies for handling the mother problem, ranging from gradual alienation to manufacturing a health emergency to distract him. As Eleanor photographed screen after screen with a tiny camera disguised as a brooch, she heard voices in the hallway. Jessica was back, and she wasn't alone. Eleanor slipped into the adjoining bathroom, leaving the door cracked open. The hair appointment was a waste, Jessica was saying to Alex. Let's go over the final preparations. Are you sure it's safe to talk here? Alex asked. The maid? Maria? Jessica scoffed. She's nothing, barely speaks English and doesn't have the brains to understand. Besides, I've been making her life so miserable she'll quit any day. Eleanor's jaw tightened. They moved into the living room. The offshore accounts are set, Alex said. Once you're married, we start the transfers. Small at first, then larger sums once you've established a pattern. And the security software? Jessica asked. Our buyers in Shanghai are offering $20 million for the source code. Double that if we can get the vulnerability exploit. Eleanor felt sick. This was corporate espionage with international implications. They were going to sell her son's life's work to the highest bidder. She had heard enough. This was no longer just about protecting Marcus from a gold digger. This was about saving him from total destruction. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place 3 days later when Marcus called. Mom, I have to fly to San Francisco, he said, his voice tight with stress. An emergency meeting. Some security vulnerability needs my personal attention. I'll be gone for 2 days. Eleanor knew instantly. The vulnerability was manufactured, a ploy to get Marcus out of town. Jessica will be busy anyway, Marcus continued, oblivious. She's hosting some charity committee meeting at the apartment. That was it. The opening. With Marcus gone, Jessica and her co-conspirators would feel safe. They would drop their guard. Eleanor had to be there. She had to get their plans on tape, in their own words. The next evening, with Marcus in the air, Eleanor once again became Maria. She called an old friend from the force, Daniel, asking him to wait outside the building as backup. At 8:45 p.m., she slipped through the service entrance. The guard, recognizing the maid, waved her through. She rode the service elevator, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. Through the apartment door, she could hear music and laughter. She activated the tiny recording device in her pocket. Taking a deep, steadying breath, she knocked. The door swung open. Jessica stood there, stunning in a black dress, a champagne flute in hand. Her smile evaporated the moment she saw who it was. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, blocking the entrance. Behind her, a group of well-dressed people lounged on the furniture Eleanor had so painstakingly polished. "I am so sorry to disturb, Ms. Parker," Eleanor said, her voice meek, her eyes fixed on the floor. "I left my heart medication. I called, but there was no answer. The building manager let me up." Jessica's eyes narrowed, but with a room full of guests, she couldn't make a scene. "Fine," she snapped. "Where is it?" "In the staff bathroom, Ms. Parker. I will be quick." Jessica stepped aside grudgingly. "My maid," she announced to the room with an eye roll, "apparently left something." The guests paid her no mind as Eleanor shuffled past them, her every sense on high alert, the tiny device in her pocket silently capturing everything. She moved with a deliberate slowness, the tiny recording device in her pocket capturing every word. From the living room, a man's voice, Alex she presumed, complained about their evening being interrupted. "Don't worry," Jessica's voice floated back, crystal clear. "This won't take long. Just make sure everyone's glasses are topped off for the toast." Eleanor slipped into the bathroom, leaving the door a whisper ajar. She feigned a search through the drawers, her entire being focused on the conversation beyond the door. "So," a woman's voice asked, dripping with sarcasm, "where's the lucky groom tonight?" A ripple of laughter followed. "San Francisco," Jessica replied, a smug satisfaction in her tone. "Which is precisely where we need him. Our little security breach performed flawlessly. He'll be gone for at least 2 days, fixing a problem that doesn't exist." The laughter that followed was crueler this time, sharper. "Ladies and gentlemen," Alex's voice boomed over the murmurs, "a toast to Jessica for a performance worthy of an Academy Award. And to our biggest score yet, Wilson Tech. The chime of clinking glasses echoed through the apartment. God, you should see the way he looks at her, someone remarked, like a lovesick puppy. She must be incredible, another woman added, sparking a new wave of raucous laughter. A girl's gotta do what a girl's gotta do, Jessica said with a sigh of mock weariness. Though I'll admit, pretending to be attracted to him is the hardest part, always going on about his algorithms, his security protocols. It's so boring. But worth it for $50 million, right? Alex prompted. Plus whatever we get for the security software, Jessica agreed. The Russians are already offering $20 million for the source code alone. A wave of nausea washed over Eleanor. They were going to sell her son's life's work to foreign powers. They weren't just destroying his company, they were compromising national security. Wilson Tech provided systems for multiple government agencies, a fact these criminals clearly intended to exploit. What about the mother? Someone asked. I heard she's been difficult. Eleanor froze, straining to hear. Eleanor? Jessica's voice was laced with pure contempt. Just another obstacle to be removed. She's smarter than I gave her credit for, but it's too late now. Marcus already thinks she's just an interfering mother who can't let her precious son go. Must be hard for her, a man mused. Watching her son marry a white woman? Jessica's laugh was as cold and sharp as shattering ice. Please, that family should be grateful someone like me would even look at him. Do you know what his mother said when we first met? She asked about my intentions, as if I was some common gold digger, if she only knew. The room erupted in laughter once more. The best part, Jessica continued, her words slightly slurred by champagne, is how I've convinced him his mother's concerns are just thinly veiled racism, that she can't accept him being with me. He's so desperate to prove how enlightened he is, he defends me even when his own gut tells him something is wrong. Psychological manipulation at its finest, a voice commented with admiration. I've had a lot of practice, Jessica purred, but this is my masterpiece. In 3 days, I'll be Mrs. Wilson. In 3 weeks, I'll be single again with enough money to disappear forever. Eleanor had heard enough. She had it all. Jessica's real voice, the contempt, the conspiracy. This would be enough to save Marcus from the predator at his side. She quietly closed the bathroom drawer, preparing to melt away as silently as she'd arrived, but as she stepped into the hallway, a figure blocked her path. Find what you were looking for? Jessica asked. Her eyes were cold stones of suspicion. Yes, Ms. Parker. Thank you. I'll be on my way now. Eleanor tried to step around her, but Jessica stood firm. You know, it's the strangest thing, Jessica said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. I don't recall you ever mentioning a heart condition while you worked for me. And the building manager wasn't even on duty tonight. Eleanor's pulse hammered against her ribs. Jessica's eyes were now sharp and focused, all traces of champagne-fueled ease gone. She hadn't just been careless, she'd been tested, and Eleanor had walked right into the trap. I don't know what you mean, Ms. Parker. I just needed my medicine. Jessica stepped closer, her expensive perfume, the one Marcus had bought her, assaulting Eleanor's senses in the narrow space. Who are you? She demanded. Because you are not a housekeeper. No maid I've ever known notices the things you notice. You weren't just working, you were watching me, studying me. Eleanor's mind raced, calculating escape routes. The front door was blocked by the party. The service entrance was behind Jessica. The windows were 32 floors above the street. She was cornered. Ms. Parker, I think you've had too much to drink. I really should go. Jessica's hand shot out, her grip on Eleanor's wrist shockingly strong. Empty your pockets. Now. Let go of me, Eleanor said, the subservient tone vanishing, replaced by a steely command as she tried to wrench her arm free. The sudden shift in her demeanor was all the confirmation Jessica needed. Who sent you? His mother? Some kind of PI? In the living room, the party chatter had died down as guests sensed the confrontation. Alex appeared behind Jessica, his handsome face hardening. Everything okay, babe? Our maid isn't who she says she is, Jessica replied, her gaze locked on Eleanor. Check her pockets. She's been spying on us. Alex moved, but Eleanor was faster. Decades of training, dormant but never forgotten, kicked in. She twisted out of Jessica's grip, using the younger woman's momentum against her. Don't touch me, Eleanor warned, her voice now entirely her own, authoritative, powerful, and utterly unfamiliar. A flicker of recognition, then dawning horror, crossed Jessica's face as Eleanor's carefully constructed accent slipped away. "Oh my God," she breathed. "You're her. You're his mother." The hallway fell silent. Then Jessica began to laugh, a cold, cruel sound that bounced off the walls. "This is priceless." The great Eleanor Wilson, reduced to playing dress-up as a maid to spy on her son's fiancée. How utterly desperate. "Not desperate," Eleanor corrected, drawing herself up to her full height, the disguise now irrelevant. "Determined. And now I have everything I need." She patted the pocket containing the recorder. Jessica's eyes widened, then narrowed into slits of fury. "Give me that." "What I have," Eleanor said evenly, "is you, in your own words, plotting to defraud my son and sell his technology to a foreign power. That isn't just theft, Jessica, it's espionage." Alex took a menacing step forward. "Give her the recorder, now." Eleanor held her ground. She was outnumbered, but not outmatched. "Back away," she ordered, her tone leaving no doubt that this was not her first confrontation. "I'm leaving. If either of you tries to stop me, you will regret it." "You think Marcus will believe you?" Jessica's face contorted with rage. "He'll think you faked it, that you set me up. He will hate you for this." "Let's let him decide," Eleanor replied, her heart pounding as she began to sidle along the wall toward the front door. Suddenly, Jessica lunged, shoving Eleanor hard. The older woman slammed against the wall, the impact jarring her head cracking against the plaster. But as she winced in pain, her other hand was already in her pocket, her thumb on her phone, the line to Marcus already open. "Get your hands off me," Eleanor said, her voice loud and clear for the open mic. "You pathetic old woman," Jessica snarled, her beautiful face twisted into an ugly mask. "You can't stand that he chose me, can you? That he prefers a white woman to whatever ghetto trash you wanted for him." The raw racism was shocking, but Eleanor didn't have to fake her outrage. "My son deserves someone who loves him, not a con artist planning to destroy his life." "Love him?" Jessica's bitter laugh echoed down the line to Marcus, thousands of miles away. "Look at him. He's boring, naive, and so desperate for approval he can't see what's right in front of his face. The only thing I love about Marcus Wilson is his bank account and his security protocols." "Jessica, that's enough," Alex warned, a flicker of panic in his eyes, but she was too far gone. "Do you know how hard it is?" she shrieked, her voice rising hysterically. "Pretending to laugh at his stupid jokes, listening to him talk about his perfect mother, the brilliant detective, pretending I enjoy his touch." Each word was a blow, not to Eleanor but for her son. He needed to hear this. He needed the unvarnished, ugly truth. "You won't get away with this," Eleanor said quietly. "I've already won," Jessica sneered. "It's your word against mine, and who will he believe? The possessive mother who can't let go, or the woman he loves?" "We'll see," Eleanor replied, pressing the button that sent her location to her emergency contact, Daniel. "First, I'm walking out of here." "No," Jessica said, nodding to Alex and two other men who now blocked the hall. "You're not. Take her phone and whatever else she has. Now." As they closed in, Eleanor made her choice. She raised her voice, pitching it directly to the phone. "Marcus, if you can hear this, I'm at Jessica's apartment, 2160 Central Park West, apartment 32B. Everything she has said is being recorded. They are planning to steal your technology and sell it. They are about to assault me. Call the police. Now." Jessica's face went white. "What did you just do?" Eleanor allowed herself a grim smile. "Checkmate." For a moment, no one moved. Then, Jessica's composure shattered completely. With a raw scream of rage, she lunged, her hands outstretched like claws. "You ruined everything!" The attack was so sudden, Eleanor barely had time to react. Jessica's hands closed around her throat, and they both tumbled to the floor. Chaos erupted. Guests scrambled for the door as Alex frantically tried to pull Jessica off Eleanor. "Are you crazy? Stop!" Eleanor fought for breath, Jessica's grip tightening, her face a mask of pure hatred, but her training hadn't deserted her. She drove her knee up sharply into Jessica's midsection, forcing a gasp and a loosening of the grip. As they struggled, Eleanor's wig was knocked askew, makeup smearing across her face. "Security! Open up!" A loud pounding on the door cut through the mayhem. Daniel had come through. Jessica scrambled back, her expression wild. This isn't over, she hissed. Eleanor rose slowly, adjusting her ruined disguise with as much dignity as she could muster. Actually, she said, it is. As building security flooded the apartment, Eleanor pulled the phone from her pocket. The call to Marcus had lasted over 4 minutes, long enough for him to hear it all. Long enough, she prayed, to save him. 6,000 miles away, Marcus Wilson sat frozen in his San Francisco hotel room, the phone still pressed to his ear. His mother's voice, Jessica's venom, the sounds of a struggle, the world he had built, the future he had planned, had just collapsed around him. "Sir, the car is waiting," his assistant called through the door. "Cancel everything," Marcus managed to say, his voice hoarse. "Get me back to New York. Now." On the private jet, speeding east through the night sky, he replayed the call, each word a fresh stab of betrayal. Jessica's contempt, her racism, the plot to ruin him, and the stunning realization that his mother, the mother he had accused of being controlling and prejudiced, had gone undercover to protect him. By the time he landed, he had spoken to Keith, his CFO. "I've got a security team ready," Keith said, "and our lawyers are on standby. We're locking down the system now." "Do it," Marcus ordered. "And Keith, my mother, is she okay?" There was a pause. "She refused medical attention, said she had to wait for you. Marcus, the building's security footage shows Jessica attacking her." A white-hot rage, cold and absolute, filled him. He found her in the hallway outside Jessica's apartment, surrounded by police. Her disguise was a wreck, but her posture was as regal as ever. "Mom," he choked out, pushing past an officer. Her face, when she saw him, was awash with relief. "Marcus." Just then, Jessica emerged, flanked by 2 detectives. She wasn't handcuffed. Her perfect facade was shattered, mascara streaking her face, but when she saw Marcus, she transformed. Tears welled in her eyes. "Marcus, thank God. Your mother, she broke in, she was stalking me, she attacked me when I found out who she was." He stared at the woman he had almost married, seeing her for the very first time. The performance was flawless, and it meant nothing. "I heard everything, Jessica," he said, his voice deadly quiet. "I was on the phone. I heard what you said about me. About my company, about my mother." Her composure faltered for a fraction of a second. "No, darling, you don't understand. She set me up. She provoked me, recorded me out of context. She can't stand that you're with a white woman." It was the same argument she had used before, the one that had worked so perfectly. But now the words were hollow, pathetic. "I heard Alex too," Marcus continued, his voice hardening. "I heard you talking about selling my software. I heard you laughing about manipulating me." Her eyes darted around, searching for an escape. "It was a joke, a role-playing game. Those people aren't even my friends. They're actors your mother hired." "Detective," Marcus said, turning to the officer beside him, "I want to press charges for the assault on my mother, for attempted fraud, for corporate espionage, for everything you can make stick." "No!" Jessica shrieked, lunging for him before the officers restrained her. "Marcus, you can't. I did it for us." As they led her away, still screaming her innocence, Marcus turned and wrapped his arms around his mother. "I'm so sorry," he whispered into her hair. "I should have listened." Eleanor sagged against him, weeks of tension finally melting away. "You're here now," she said. "That's all that matters." 24 hours later, the full truth lay spread across Marcus's dining room table, Eleanor's complete file. Photos, financial records detailing 6 other victims, and the full, damning recording. "Alex DeVries," Eleanor explained, pointing to a photograph. "His real name is Alexander Petrov. He and Jessica, or rather, Yelena Sorokina, have been partners for at least 6 years. They've targeted tech CEOs exclusively." Keith's voice was low, cutting through the sterile air of the office. "Focusing on those with valuable intellectual property they can sell overseas." Marcus reviewed the evidence laid out on the table, his face a mask of controlled fury. Each document, each photograph was a testament to his own blindness. "And I fell for it completely." "She's a professional, Marcus. They all are," Keith said, his tone softening with a rare hint of sympathy. "They've been doing this for years, perfecting their approach with each victim. You're not the first intelligent man they've deceived, and you wouldn't have been the last." Just then the office door opened, and Keith's partner arrived, flanked by 2 FBI agents, whose presence instantly shifted the atmosphere from corporate crisis to federal emergency. The investigation had clearly metastasized, the scope of Jessica's criminal enterprise far greater than any of them had imagined. "We've got him," Keith's partner announced without preamble. "Alex, he rolled over on Jessica and the entire network as soon as we picked him up. Sang like a canary trying to cut a deal." Marcus looked up, his eyes sharp. "Did he confirm the overseas connections? The technology sale?" The lead agent nodded grimly. "Russia, China, North Korea. They were shopping your security protocols to the highest bidder. They had buyers lined up before the wedding was even planned." The agent stepped forward, his expression severe. "Mr. Wilson, the implications here go far beyond corporate espionage. This has crossed into national security. Your cooperation will be essential as we unravel their network." "Whatever you need," Marcus agreed without hesitation, his voice flat. "But first, where is she? Where is Jessica now?" "In custody," the other agent replied, still maintaining her innocence. "Claims she was set up, that Alex is lying to save his own skin. She's even trying to claim your mother orchestrated the whole thing out of jealousy." Marcus's jaw tightened, a muscle pulsing in his cheek. "And the recordings? What does she say about what I heard with my own ears?" "Says it was taken out of context," the agent said, her skeptical tone betraying her professional neutrality. "That she was performing a role, testing a friend's loyalty." As if summoned by the conversation, Marcus's phone began to vibrate on the table. Jessica's name glowed on the screen. He stared at it for a long, silent moment before answering, his thumb activating the speakerphone. "Marcus, please." Jessica's voice, thick with manufactured tears, filled the room. "You have to listen to me. This is all a terrible misunderstanding." "Is it?" Marcus's reply was chillingly even. "Was it a misunderstanding when you mocked me to your friends? When you discussed selling my life's work to hostile foreign powers? When you attacked my mother? That woman is not who you think she is." Jessica's voice hardened, the delicate mask slipping. "She manipulated this entire situation. She disguised herself, invaded my privacy, and recorded me without my consent. To protect her son," Marcus finished for her, his voice like ice, "which is exactly what a mother is supposed to do. She couldn't stand seeing you happy with me, a white woman taking her precious son away. Everything I did, Marcus, I did for us." Marcus looked at his mother, at Keith, at the FBI agents who were now witnesses to Jessica's unraveling. "There is no us, Jessica," he said, the finality in his voice absolute. "There never was. The wedding is off. You'll be hearing from my lawyers. And apparently, from federal prosecutors as well. You'll regret this," she hissed, all pretense of innocence gone, replaced by pure venom. "You think you're so smart, but you were the easiest mark we've ever had. So desperate for a little love you couldn't see what was right in front of your face." Marcus ended the call. The silence that descended was heavier than any sound, filled with the shattered pieces of his illusion. He had nearly lost everything. Not just a personal heartbreak, but professional ruin and a catastrophic breach of national security. "She's right about one thing," he finally said, his voice thick with an emotion he couldn't name. "I was blind. I wanted so badly to believe in the future we were planning that I ignored every single warning sign." Eleanor stepped forward and placed a hand over her son's. "That's not weakness, Marcus. That's humanity. We all want to believe in love." He looked at her then, truly looked at her, his gaze filled with a dawning awe. "How did you know? From the very beginning, how did you see what I couldn't?" Eleanor smiled, a sad, knowing expression on her face. 30 years as a detective teaches you to recognize patterns. But more than that, 35 years as your mother taught me to recognize what real love looks like. And whatever Jessica felt for you, it wasn't love. It was calculation. In the days that followed, Jessica's world crumbled. Alex's full confession detailed not only their plans for Marcus, but a string of previous victims, 2 of whom had taken their own lives after being financially and emotionally destroyed. Faced with overwhelming evidence and abandoned by her co-conspirators, Jessica finally broke, confessing to everything in exchange for a sliver of leniency at sentencing. The full extent of her crimes shocked even the most seasoned investigators. 7 victims, millions stolen, and technology sold to foreign entities that had compromised American security interests. For Marcus, the public humiliation of canceling a high-profile wedding was a fleeting sting compared to the private reckoning with his own judgment. Through it all, Eleanor remained his steadfast support, never once uttering the words, "I told you so." A week after what would have been his wedding day, Marcus sat with his mother on the balcony of her modest home, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and violet. "I've been thinking," he said, breaking a long, comfortable silence, "about what you did. Going undercover, enduring her abuse, putting yourself at risk. Most mothers would have just argued, tried to convince me with words." Eleanor smiled. "I'm not most mothers." "No," Marcus agreed, taking her hand. "You're the kind of mother who becomes a maid to save her son, who tolerates humiliation to prevent his ruin, who risks her relationship with her only child to protect him." "Any mother would do the same," she demurred. "We both know that's not true," Marcus countered, his voice firm with conviction. "What you did was extraordinary, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you know how grateful I am." As the last sliver of sun dipped below the horizon, mother and son sat in a renewed, unbreakable understanding. The crisis that could have torn them apart had forged their bond into something stronger, a connection that no deception could ever hope to break. Eleanor Wilson hadn't just stopped a wedding, she had saved her son. She had proven in the most profound way possible that a mother's love is the most powerful force on earth. 6 months later, Marcus Wilson stood at the panoramic window of his office, gazing out at the Manhattan skyline. The city below hummed with its relentless energy, indifferent to the earthquake that had shaken his world. For Marcus, however, everything was different. The trial of Jessica Parker, or Yelena Sorokina as court documents officially named her, had concluded the week before. The evidence had been a tidal wave: Eleanor's recordings, the labyrinthine financial trail, Alex's damning testimony, and statements from previous victims who, emboldened by the headlines, finally found the courage to come forward. Jessica received 18 years in federal prison. Alex, for his cooperation, received 12. The rest of their network was dismantled, its members handed sentences that would keep them out of society for years to come. The international fallout had been swift and silent. 3 foreign intelligence operatives were quietly expelled from the country, and the security technology that had so nearly fallen into the wrong hands was now being deployed to safeguard the nation's most critical infrastructure. But the professional vindication paled in comparison to the personal reconciliation. "You saved everything I've ever built," Marcus had told Eleanor over dinner shortly after the arrests. "Not just the company. My life. And I pushed you away. I doubted you." Eleanor had simply reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. "When you were 5, she said softly, you ran straight into the street chasing a ball. I yanked you back just as a car sped by. You were furious with me. You screamed that you hated me for grabbing you so roughly." Marcus smiled faintly. "I don't remember that." "I do," she continued. "And in that moment I thought, you can hate me for the rest of your life, as long as you're alive to do it. That's a mother's love, Marcus. It doesn't need to be understood. It just needs you to survive." "So that's what this was," he said, the realization dawning. "You were pulling me back from a car I couldn't even see." Eleanor had nodded. "Exactly. Some dangers are loud and obvious. Others, like Jessica, move silently, disguised as something beautiful, until it's too late." The revelation of Jessica's true nature and the depth of his mother's sacrifice had irrevocably changed Marcus. The company, once his singular obsession, became one part of a more balanced life. He promoted Keith to co-CEO, a recognition of the loyalty he had once failed to see. He also established a foundation to support victims of sophisticated fraud, turning his painful experience into a source of healing for others. But the most significant transformation came from Eleanor herself. At 71, she launched a new venture: Wilson Verification Services. It was a discreet, high-end background investigation service for families concerned about the true nature of people entering their lives. "It's not about distrust," she explained at the small launch party in Marcus's penthouse. "It's about peace of mind. In an age of digital ghosts and flawless lies, families deserve to know who they're truly welcoming through their door." The service became a quiet force for good, a shield for those who might otherwise fall victim to the Yelena Sorokinas of the world. Exactly 1 year after the wedding that never was, Marcus and Eleanor sat on her back porch, sharing a bottle of wine as the evening sky bled from pink to indigo. "I got a letter from her today," Marcus said quietly. "From prison." Eleanor raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "She wanted to apologize," he continued, a wry smile touching his lips. "Says she's had time to reflect, found religion. Says she truly regrets hurting me." "And do you believe her?" Eleanor asked, her detective's gaze still sharp. "Not for a second," Marcus replied. "It's just another performance. Her first parole hearing is in a few years. She's just setting the stage." Eleanor nodded, a deep pride in her eyes. "Once you've seen behind the mask, it's impossible to be fooled by it again." "I've been thinking about what this whole thing taught me," Marcus said, refilling their glasses. "About trust, about seeing people for who they really are." "And what have you learned?" "That real love, between partners, family, friends, never asks you to be blind. It thrives in the light of truth, not in the shadows of convenient illusions." Eleanor smiled, the look on her face a perfect blend of love and pride. "That," she said, "is wisdom worth the price we paid for it." As darkness settled around them, they fell into an easy conversation about the future. Eleanor's growing business, Marcus's foundation, a family dinner plan for the weekend. The past was no longer a wound, but a scar that had healed into a map of resilience. Jessica Parker had tried to sever the bond between a mother and her son, to isolate Marcus from the one person who could see through her lies. In doing so, she had only revealed its true strength, cementing the very connection she sought to destroy. In a world of beautiful facades and calculated cruelty, the quiet, unwavering force of a mother's love had proven to be the one thing that could never be defeated.